Hi everyone. Beginning of May is perfect in our Kansas Zone 6B garden to transplant tomatoes and peppers. We are going to do that today and share many tips about these two plants as we go. Let us begin with tomatoes. First, I will plant one in a container and then we will transplant a few in a raised bed. Tomato plants need more space, so a smaller pot may not be sufficient. I am using a 10-gallon pot here. So first tip is, if you plan to grow tomatoes in containers, use a smaller size tomato variety but in a larger pot. So Roma or cherry tomato will do better than a beefsteak tomato. Smaller varieties will perform better, will make more tomatoes for you, and will ripen faster. Don't be disheartened if you want to grow only large tomatoes. They grow in containers too, but expect less vigor from them. I am reusing this container soil. I added some sand and this organic plant food to it. This container is ready to plant a tomato plant in it. Now I am going to put in this Ola spike first. This helps a lot to water plants in containers. I have covered in detail in another video, which is linked in description. Now I am going to plant my tomato plant right next to it. With tomatoes, you can take out the lower leaves and bury the whole stem in dirt. The stem will make roots. So the root ball goes in, and now I am making a sideways trench in which I will put the rest of the stem. This would give the plant a better root system. In 2 days, this slanted plant would align itself straight upward. It's quite amazing to see plants react that way. That was tip number 2. Now let us look at tip number 3. I have this bunch of lettuce that I'm going to transplant in the same pot. The tomato plant will grow upward and it needs time to do so. During that time, these lettuce plants will thrive here, providing nice salad for us and shading the top of this container, which will keep weeds away and keep the soil cool by shading it. This container is ready. Let us plant some in a raised bed. So, I topped this raised bed with homemade compost, made in that composter, and on soil test, it was high in NPK. I was surprised too. Here also we will follow same technique to bury the whole stem, but the thing is most of the gardeners grow only indeterminate type of tomatoes. Those tomato plants keep growing and keep producing. But you will be surprised by the determinate varieties as well. I have this mushroom basket variety. It is determinate type, which means it will stop growing after certain size, but it made so many tomatoes last year and such pretty ones. So tip number 4 is to add determinate varieties in your garden too. Once you have a plant in, add a support either at the time of planting or within 1 week of planting. That way you won't disturb the roots by poking support system into it later on. Tip 6 is that if you have less sun available, the tomatoes will take longer to ripen and will be less sweet. You can counter it by using tip number 1. Which is to plant smaller varieties such as cherry and Roma. Now let us transplant peppers. The procedure is the same. I will add organic fertilizer, but instead of throwing it into the hole, I prefer to mix it with the dirt that I dug out. This prevents the roots from burning when too much fertilizer is present. Tip 8 is specific to peppers. While other plants prefer more space to themselves, peppers do just fine if they are planted closer to each other. So I will plant these about 8 inches away from each other. Tip number 9. Smaller peppers will produce in partial sun as well. So I have them planted behind the larger peppers, and even slight bit more closer to each other than the larger peppers. Last year, my smaller peppers had lots of shade, but they didn't seem to mind at all. Tip number 10. While you must water right after transplanting, don't forget to water the next day as well, and maybe a couple of days after that. Plants usually go into transplant shock, and watering them at the right time helps them settle in. Just keep an eye on them till they look like they are standing well by themselves. I would encourage you all to make compost at home. It is much easier, and I have covered it in great details in this video. So do check it out. Thanks for watching.